We have a major update on multiple New York Knicks free agent targets, as this just got very real for the Knicks, as there are multiple players that they're already said to be going after, especially considering that there are some players on this Knicks team that are more likely to not be on the team next season than not, or have just found themselves in a litany of rumors, and because of that, we know a lot of the Knicks targets already and what kind of players they will be targeting, and we're going to break all that down. So a lot to go over, guys. What's up? Welcome back to Knicks Digest. It's Chris here. We're going to jump right into things as always. If you guys are part of that 72% that's not subscribed to Knicks Digest and you want daily New York Knicks content, this is the place to be. We are never missing an upload, not one day throughout all the offseason. You will have every Knicks update that you could possibly have. But let's jump into the video because there's a lot to go over. Al Horford is one of those guys who's a free agent, and there's going to be a lot of contending teams looking at him. Now, the longtime Boston Celtic and Atlanta Hawk will find himself likely looking at a new team based off the fact that there's just been a lot of noise surrounding the Boston Celtics and what is going to happen next, and they're not exactly contenders next season. Now, they're not fully not contenders, but they're not exactly contenders, and we know the type of players that Leon Rose is going to go for. It's very clear the Knicks need one thing more than anything else: a bench. Now, where things stand right now, let's assume they go into the year with the same top 7 guys and the same starting lineup that they used in the final 2 games final 3 games of the season against the Indiana Pacers, where their starting 5 is Jalen Brunson, Mikal Bridges, OG Anunoby, Karl-Anthony Towns, Mitchell Robinson. And off the bench, you have Deuce McBride and Josh Hart. Now, that is a good beginning to your bench. In fact, that's a great beginning. Josh Hart would be one of the favorites for the Rookie of the Year instantly. And on top of that, what we'd be seeing is a New York Knicks team that, frankly, they would now just need some help in a few areas of depth, namely that big man spot. And it likely becomes a scenario that the Knicks would either look for a shot creator off the bench or a big man. Now, if they look for a shot creator, look for Ariel Hukporti, and also, as we now know, James Najee to get some serious burn for this Knicks team. That is if Najee's not on that 2-way contract. But obviously, we have a whole video on that we just posted, so make sure to go check that one out. However, on top of this, what we're looking at is a scenario where the Knicks are spending that mid-level exception on a big man, and we got a huge update in regards to that. As Michael Scotto mentioned, predominantly high-level playoff contenders are monitoring Al Horford to see if he'd leave Boston. With the Celtics expected to take a step back without Tatum next season and in a financial crunch regarding their salary books, the general sense around the league and those close to Horford is that he'll continue to play next season despite that. Now, Sports Illustrated mentioned that Horford is set to hit free agency and will be heading into his age 39 season. While he has been rock solid in his role for the Celtics, it's far from guaranteed that Boston looks to bring him back. Age is certainly a factor, and the front office may look to tighten things up financially. Even if Horford wouldn't command a hefty contract, he could still be one of those veterans Boston opts to move on from. Despite being load managed throughout the year, he turned in a productive campaign, and that's 100% accurate. Last season, Al Horford put up 9 points per game with 6 rebounds and 2 assists. He nearly blocked a shot per game. He did block a shot per game. On top of that, shot 42% from the field and 36% from 3. So Horford is someone who is a very talented big man. He's going to be someone who is going to get interest in free agency from a lot of different areas. And because of that, what we're going to see is a situation where the Knicks will look at Al Horford as a guy to bring in. Now, Horford in the playoffs put up 8 points and 6 rebounds. He shot 40% from 3 as well. He's someone the Knicks could use as he gives them versatility. He could play that power forward or center spot. He could play next to Karl-Anthony Towns, and that could help the defense out a ton. I know Horford's obviously not the same defender he was in his prime, but he still is a rock-solid defender who's a very smart player, and Karl-Anthony Towns could use that. Al Horford and Karl-Anthony Towns are very close because of the Dominican national team stuff. So the two do have a rapport with each other, and because of that, Horford could help Towns kind of just get his head in the right place so he's not making these defensive lapses that absolutely have had a negative impact on the Knicks. Overall, just to be clear, Karl-Anthony Towns has a positive impact on the Knicks, but his defensive issues, he's the defensive liability, let's be real. it negatively impacts the Knicks like any liability impacts any team. And when you're an NBA star like Karl-Anthony Towns, who just started in the All-Star game last year, I think it's important to note, also the All-Star game format sucks. I mean, USA versus World, you're going to get the most random people of All-Stars. You're turning this into the Pro Bowl in every sense of the word, you idiots. Adam Silver's so dumb. But that's not the point. The point is that Karl-Anthony Towns and Al Horford have a great connection with each other, and that could very much help the Knicks. On top of the fact that Al Horford would be excellent for a guy like Ariel Hukporti. You look at the way that Ariel Hukporti's been, and Al Horford's the perfect type of guy to get in there and help him. Hukporti's a skilled big man. Now, I know he seems like a rim runner because he's athletic, he blocks shots, all that, but he has some really good skill in regards to making plays. Horford's a great passing big man as well. On top of that, don't get it twisted. I don't know if he'll be allowed to. Tibbs definitely was not going to allow him to, the way that Hartenstein wasn't allowed to. But Hukporti's got a jump shot. It's not necessarily world-breaking. Like, I'm not going to fall out of my chair and roll around on the floor over his jump shot. But if Hukporti's open at the elbow from 15 feet out, he will make it. He's talented. He's a really talented player. Al Horford would be a great mentor for Ariel Hukporti. Now, also in this scenario that I'm describing, again, I imagine Mitchell Robinson stays on the team. Overall, I think there's a better chance than not that Mitchell Robinson does stay on the team. However, there is a real world where he gets traded. I know I say that we're going to talk about this at a later time. This is not fully the later time, but I'm going to give you guys some insight on this. The Knicks' salary situation is not great either. They're around $11 million away from that second apron. They do not want to go into that second apron, and Mitchell Robinson is on a contract that's expiring next season. They likely will opt to not re-sign him if they re-sign Mikal Bridges to that 4-year, $156 million contract. And on top of that, what we'd also see is a situation where Josh Hart is going to be due for an extension soon, and it's going to move the Knicks closer and closer to the second apron. Meanwhile, Mitchell Robinson finds himself in a situation where, unless he's taking a serious pay cut with the Knicks, they probably would have to let him walk, and he'd probably garner a ton of interest elsewhere. Also, Robinson's trade value is the highest it's been in years, so it just makes sense that if the Knicks did want to move him, it would be now. And I'm not saying I want the Knicks to trade Mitch. In fact, I don't want the Knicks to trade Mitch. I think the impact that he has on winning, I think you take the gamble in a lot of ways. If you get an overpriced trade package, like if you're going to get something that is totally worth it, like it's just makes no sense not to take, then obviously you take it. But Mitch impacts winning on such a high level that I think he fits in on this team super well, and because of that, I think they should keep him. But overall, there is the legit concern of being injury prone and all that. The problem is there's no one really in free agency to replace him, and you're not really going to be trading for someone who can replace him either. The closest that'll come is Clint Capella, who's a lot worse than Mitch at this point of the game. So I kind of think you at least take the gamble till, at the very least, the All-Star break on Mitch. And if you lose him in free agency because he tried to win the NBA Finals when the East was as open as it really has been in a while, I think you can kind of live with that. You could probably find someone elsewhere to not replace the production fully, but give good production. So that is a real scenario here. And because of that, there's going to be talk about a lot of different guys who come up here. Now, with Al Horford, he doesn't replace Mitchell Robinson. And I'm not saying he does, but he does give you another big man. And I think Horford makes a lot more sense if the Knicks decide to keep Mitchell Robinson as well. Because Mitch would be in the starting lineup with Cat, you need another big man coming off the bench. You might also want to run Hukporti or Najee out there with him as well, just so you do have a good amount of bigs out there, which I'm perfectly fine with. I think it comes down to whoever the coach is going to be who makes that ultimate decision. So all that in mind, it is important to go over that. And as well with this stuff, what we're seeing is just multiple reports that the Knicks very likely will look at Horford. I mean, James Edwards said a couple of names to consider with the taxpayer mid-level exception are Spencer Dinwiddie, Trey Lyles, and Al Horford. Now, I already talked about Trey Lyles. Spencer Dinwiddie, I do believe, is going back to the Mavericks because he has a starting point guard job waiting for him, at least until February. And then Al Horford, who I do think the Knicks will show interest in because he just seems like the type of player the Knicks would go for. A smart player who plays on both sides of the ball and would definitely help Cat in a lot of ways. Now, Tim Bontemps also mentioned that Al Horford is a free agent, and I don't think at this point it makes a lot of sense for Horford to be back in Boston. Maybe he will be, but given where things are with the Celtics, I think he's now much more in play than he has been a month ago. Horford is a longtime friend of Karl-Anthony Towns and has played with him with the Dominican national team for a long time. So all that being said, it does make some sense for the Knicks to go after him. But there is another name that they could try to steal from the Celtics as well. You obviously saw him in likely the thumbnail and certainly in this intro video, and that's Luke Kornet. Kornet, as a lot of you probably just said or thought to yourself, Luke Kornet used to be a Knick, and when he was a Knick, he was the unicorn, K-O-R-N, not C-O-R-N, not Porzingis. And it's because he was shooting threes and blocking shots. He was a light version of Porzingis. Well, he doesn't do that anymore. No more threes for Kornet. It's gone. It's over. They killed his three-point ability. Now, maybe a coach, whoever they hire, maybe a Mike Brown, try to be like, hey, get it back. But Luke Kornet in the playoffs was productive. I mean, he put up 4.5 points, 4 rebounds, and 1.2 blocks in 11 games played. Shot 72% from the field. If you wanted to replace Mitchell Robinson, if you wanted to go out there and do that, then this is a decent move. You're not getting the same production, but you are getting rim protection still, and that does matter. Mitch was still great, though, and you can't replace him with a guy like Kornet. You can't replace him with Al Horford. Mitch put up 7 rebounds, 5 points, and 1 steal with nearly a block as well in the 2025 playoffs. His block numbers were down, but he still shot 61% from the field and was grabbing nearly 4 offensive rebounds per game. Nobody does that, so Mitch now, who would be on extended minutes and the blocks would be up, especially now after shaking off that rust, which he's clearly still had in the playoffs, it's going to be this situation where he's going to be better next year. So you have to really be careful with the trade stuff. So you have to consider everything. And if you do end up trading Mitchell Robinson, then Luke Kornet is a good guy to replace him with. Also, Luke Kornet was the first guest ever on Mitchell Robinson's block party, the show he had as a rookie. So there's that, but that's not the point of this. The point is that NBA University also said Kornet would really help a lot of teams. He's getting paid this summer, which he is. And if you want to replace Mitch, Kornet is not the worst option. I know that people understand it's a downgrade. I'm not saying it's not, and you likely would not start Kornet and you'd go back to the old starting 5, which I don't really like that unit together. So I'd prefer you keep Mitchell Robinson, but this is just a real scenario that's important to bring up. Now, Kornet on the season had a solid year for sure. Put up 6 points, 5 rebounds, 1.5 assists, 1 block, and shot 67% from the field. Positive defensive box plus minus and value over replacement players, so good numbers. And also, they're going to need another big man anyway, because I guarantee you right now, Precious Achiuwa is going to be leaving the Knicks 100%. That's basically confirmed. But guys, should the Knicks go after Horford? Should they go after Kornet? Do you think that Mitch would get traded? Let me know in the comments down below. Like this video, subscribe, turn on post notifications. Have a great day, and go Knicks.